Hi everyone, welcome to Reading with Eve, and let's get on with another TV video. Today we are talking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I don't think I need to tell anyone the cultural impact that this show has had on, well, everything really. It was a lightning in a bottle type of situation to the point where a lot of other TV shows used it as blueprint. I'm not naming anyone, but the creators basically admitted that they modeled their shows after some elements of Buffy, and it's just been a massive phenomenon in all of media for nearly 30 years of its tenure. There's a reboot coming out, which I'm not going to talk about what I think about it because my opinion on reboots is usually negative, but I can't judge it because I don't know what it's gonna be like. So it's one of them. But ultimately, we're here to talk about the OG series. I have seen some of Angel, but I'm not really gonna talk about it unless it directly correlates to stuff that concerns Buffy's characters. So, as usual, we will go how I discovered this show, how many times I've seen it, if applicable, and then I'll talk about the seasons and my personal ranking of them, and then the characters and relationships, and maybe some hot takes. But usually those hot takes come out as I'm discussing, so it's more just summarizing them. As far as the length of this video goes, I don't know. I'm just gonna keep talking, and if I need to split it into two parts, I will split it into two parts. We'll see what happens. So anyway, how I discovered. I saw Buffy for the first time when I was around 15 years old, and I actually watched up to nearly mid-season 6, and then I was like, you know what? I've not paid enough attention to it. Certain details in certain episodes. So I'm gonna rewatch it again up until that point and then continue. So I did that and I finished it. And then I watched the high school seasons with my mom, because those were the only ones at the time that were translated into Lithuanian, dubbed over, because my mom doesn't really know English enough to understand TV in English. So we watched that, and then I watched the whole thing again with my fiance, showing him this show. Show the show. And then we watched some of it up until sometime season 4 a few years back, but then we kind of got lost with shows that we've not seen before, and they kind of got pushed aside, and then we're currently rewatching it. The first 5 seasons anyway. I'll get to that. So, I've seen it multiple times, some seasons more than others, but ultimately I feel like I do have a bit of a leg to stand on when it comes to discussing it, especially as I'm rewatching it now as we speak. I'm mid-season 3 now at the time of filming this on August 20th. So, now, where does it stand for me overall? It is one of my favorite shows ever. I think it's probably my favorite TV show, a supernatural themed TV show. Just because I do think that it is objectively one of the best written shows that I've ever seen. And you can really tell, well, we don't speak of Joss in a sense of he's a wonderful man, because we know now that he's not. But we're here to discuss his work. And with a lot of creators, yes, he created the premise and he created the storylines, but ultimately it is the actors and the crew and other writers who brought it to life, so it's not really his anymore in that sense. But I do think that his mind, not him, but his mind when creating the show and creating the plot lines, he put so much into it, and it really shows that he had a lot of stuff planned out. He had a lot of storylines ready to go. He knew where he wanted to take the show, at least, again, in the first 5 seasons. So you can really tell the difference in, as opposed to writers who just make it up as they go along sort of thing. So I do have respect for his mind, not him as a man. Just putting that out there. Again, separating the art from the artist and all of that jazz. So definitely have a lot to say. So I'll just get to it. So the seasons and season rankings. So I'll walk you through seasons chronologically and just my overall review without going into characters as much because we have a whole section for that. And then I'll give you my ranking. So season 1, first of all, I should just say that I don't understand fans who say, just skip season 1, it's not worth your time, go straight to season 2. I don't get it. To me, season 1 is a very important foundation, cornerstone of the whole show. And, I mean, yeah, okay, technically, I guess storylines don't really kick into gear until season 2, but there's so much important character work in the first season and the dynamics between the Scoobies, and I think it's a wonderful season. Is it corny? Sure. Is it cheesy? Sure. Does it take itself seriously? No, but the whole show doesn't really take itself too seriously, and the thing is, I think that for those sort of shows, it is more important to maintain a campy vibe. It just makes more sense. It just flows better. And that's what Buffy revels in. Like, it doesn't think that it's somehow, like, better than it is, even though it's amazing. Like, it doesn't take itself pretentiously. And that's its charm. That's why it's so good. And season 1 encapsulated the whole thing really well. Because you have these monster of the week. Maybe that's what turns people off, because all apart from 3 episodes are monsters of the week. But like I said, they are creative and they contain some very important character work, some very important dynamics between the Scoobies. And it's the only season that has just the original 4 Scoobies, which I really enjoy as well, because it's just nice to see them together before everything kicks into gear and the group expands and everything. It's just nice. And you have still that sort of like youthful innocence vibe before shit really hits the fan, which I think is also important. And you really see the beginnings of each character that if you skipped the season and just watched from 2 onwards, I think you would miss out some of that important character work. And as far as the scare factors go, I think I noticed that in a lot of like supernatural shows, where season 1 actually starts with like proper horror elements and then they tone that down and turn it into more of a supernatural drama. Because season 1 of Buffy is arguably, with exceptions, obviously there are some exceptions, but it's arguably the only consistent season that actually takes out horror tropes and uses them to subverse them or to comment on them in terms of, because obviously a lot of Buffy's writing is an allegory, a metaphor for something. A lot of that is why it's so amazingly written, because it deals with a lot of real life stuff. It just dresses it up as some kind of monstrous being. So season 1 is arguably the only season that consistently uses horror for that, whereas then it deviates into something different. And I really appreciate that, because it had some genuinely creepy moments, even though they could be like a little on the cheesier side sometimes. But yeah, I just think that season 1 is definitely an underrated gem, and I don't quite understand why. But I digress. So season 2 has objectively been, I think it's the best season of the show. I'm already telling you that now. And it has been my favorite season for like, I don't know, pretty much like since the first time that I've seen it. I would guess like at least 12, 13 years. It has always been my favorite. It definitely has some blunders in terms of like some Monster of the Week episodes are a bit weak, but the overall storyline with the unjealous twist with like Spike and Drusilla. It's fantastic, and it really shows what Buffy is all about. It shows what it's trying to portray. Like I said, real life struggles of growing pains of coming of age showcased into, like, boxed into this easy to stomach metaphor of supernatural origin. And I just think that it was done masterfully, and the stakes kept getting higher to the point where it exploded in the 2-part finale in a way that it still makes me cry every time I see it. It's masterful TV. We don't get TV like this anymore, not to sound like a boomer, but we just don't. I just think that it is just top-notch, fantastic. And because the main storyline is so good, it doesn't really bother me that there are a couple of weaker episodes in there, because it's just like it doesn't really harm it in any way. But yeah, I really love it. Some of the best TV overall, not just Buffy. Then season 3 is a lot of the fans' favorite season. I have mixed opinions about it. I still like it, but I don't love it as much as a lot of the fandom seem to adore it and think it's like the best, because to me there's some stuff that just doesn't quite hit the spot. But in terms of just what the season is, it's definitely a season of growing up, a season of finding yourself and like your identity. It's definitely like, it feels like it's setting the show up to go into a new direction, which it is, because it's the last year of high school and you have all these choices that need to be made. There's a lot of growing up that the gang have to do. Arguably, it's definitely a season where the gang expands, and I think that, yeah, this is like the biggest that the gang gets, because then you have people leave, but then you have replacements. And I do think that although some bits I find a bit lackluster, it then culminates into something very important and symbolic to, again, what the show's been so far and where it's heading. And I do really enjoy the fact that, like, the villain of the season tied into the whole corruption of Sunnydale as a city and everything. Like, I thought that was a nice touch, and again shows really good continuity. And then it also explored a lot what it means to be the Slayer and different ways you can be a Slayer through, well, different Slayers and how they handle it and how they see it. I will discuss that more when I talk about the characters. And then in season 4 we have a giant shift, because it's set on a university campus. The gang go to college, and then it shows, them trying to find themselves while also, and then it's very like separation that comes within finding yourself in new settings. Like, a lot of the time, how you tend to like lose and gain new friends over your lifetime, and it's kind of like we've been through so much, but it seems like we're still drifting apart because like we feel like we're different people, sort of thing. It's just very interesting. And season 4 is a love or hate for a lot of fans. Like, a lot of fans find it a bit lacking because the main villain is a bit meh, but the monsters of the week, like standalones, are where it's at for a lot of people. I do say I have to kind of agree with it, but I can appreciate that the show was trying something different. But then I can understand why for some people they said that they dropped the show that season and then didn't come back to it, which is a shame, but it happens. But then when we go into season 5, it is a very close tie between that and season 2, in a sense that it's just, again, perfect writing. It kind of, it goes back from the segregation of season 4 back into, like, themes of family and loyalty and, again, identity, duty, care, emotional growth, emotional, like, load on of everything, like the whole weight of the world on your shoulders. We get to see so much happening. The stakes, again, are really high, and it's just, again, it culminates into this heartbreaking but powerful and poignant finale that, again, is perfect writing. A lot of people said that's where the show should have ended. I don't know if I can agree with that, because it is, obviously, Buffy dies at the end of season 5. You know, it can be considered dark, but ultimately it is like a very beautiful moment, albeit sad. And then, you can tell that the writing of the show has changed. Because season 6, we go with the whole real life is the scariest thing ever. It's like, we know that. We don't need that repeating. We know life is crap. And then we get this overwhelming, we get the depression storylines, we get the incel storylines, incels being the main villains, we get all of this, lots of dark, abusive relationships, and it is a very hard season to get through. It is very depressing. Lots of really bad stuff happens, and I get what it's trying to say, that, you know, bad things will happen. It's important to pick yourself up, and you do have that again in the finale of the characters kind of like finding themselves and digging themselves out of that grave, hence why it's literally called Grave, the finale of that. But it is also depressing to get through, and there are some characters that get way more screen time than they deserve, and I will get to that. But yeah, it is not a season that I enjoy watching, so I've not really seen it in like nearly 5 years. No, it is more than that. I've not seen it in nearly 7 years, and it's just not appealing to me to rewatch it. But then we have season 7, which I also haven't seen in even longer than that, because when Fiance and I watched it, we like skimmed through a lot of it, because I just think that it was a very crappy way to end one of the best shows ever. The finale was still a decent finale to finish it off. It did have like a nice hopeful tone, like a big final fight, but overall the season focused on a bunch of new characters that didn't add anything to the show. It focused on characters that it shouldn't have focused, and kind of forced us to sympathize with abusers and attempted rapists, and it's not a nice tone. You could definitely tell that some storylines were written for the characters that were written more as like an agenda to punish them for what was happening behind the scenes, as opposed to organically developing their story. The Scoobies spent a lot of time at odds, or outright yelling at each other and hating each other, and it was not a pleasant season to try to get through. And again, I don't really have much desire to rewatch it, apart from maybe a couple episodes here and there. So yeah, not very fortunate ending again. So how would I rank them? Well, I think I sort of made my feelings clear, and I said like what's my top season, but if I had to rank it like right now, it would be season 7, season 6, season 4, then season 1 and 3. They're quite interchangeable. Previously I ranked season 1 then season 3, but actually at the moment I feel more like season 3, season 1, but again, it can interchange. Then season 5 and season 2. Season 2 and 5, they've always been at the top 2 spots, but season 2 just outranks 5 every time, because it's just that much more impactful for me. So that's my ranking. Now on to the character. Buffy Summers. I mean, what hasn't been said about this character already? But I'm still gonna say stuff because it's my video. So she is the heroine of the show. Sorry if you can see my finger. I'm trying to adjust the camera because I moved my phone and it hates me. So just bear with. Sorry. Anyway, she is the heroine of this show. She's the main character. She's the chosen one. The one who has to fight the demons and forces of darkness and carry the weight of the world on her shoulders all alone. I walk a lonely road, the only one that I have ever known. It's her song. Anyway, Buffy was written as a subversion for the damsel in distress blonde stereotype, because in horror or in a lot of shows, to be fair, Dante, come out! Always, oh, this ditzy feminine blonde girl, she always gets into trouble and she always has to be rescued, and she always, wants boys, like she wants her Prince Charming, and she's just good for nothing else, right? Well, Buffy was written specifically to subvert that, to subvert the fact that you need to be some kind of like a tomboy, someone like unfeeling and uncaring to be a hero. That you can be feminine, girly, want to find love, want to do cute, feminine things and care about your friends and be like bubbly and sweet and nice, and you can still kick ass and save the world. And that's what she does season by season. Her character journey is definitely interesting, and unfortunately, some of it is affected by, well, it is a relationship thing. So when I get to that, I will just tell you that I will discuss that in the relationship section. So basically, when we start the show, we have Buffy already knowing that she's a Slayer. Like, there's no awkward exposition. She has been kicked out of her school for burning down the gym, and she now is in Sunnydale, Hellmouth, basically. And she, at first, her instinct is to resist this, but she knows ultimately that she can't ignore her calling. And from the very first episode, one of the biggest character themes is planted. Buffy is not someone who just takes whatever bullshit the destiny, fate, whatever you want to call it, gives her, and takes it lying down like, yeah, this is my destiny, and I'm gonna just be like, yeah, this is fine. She fights against it. She tries to balance other things. She tries to still be a person and not just a vessel for the greater good. That is a theme that runs throughout the whole show. And it often has effects that vary in success. So in the first season, she is still very determined to maintain her social life, her hobbies, her relationship with her mom, and, even like a little bit of romance. She still has that sort of like bubbly, cutesy personality. Like, you could argue that Buffy, she is at her happiest in season 1 purely because, she's not been subjected to a bunch of trauma that is about to follow. But that's why I feel sad for the fans that skip season 1 entirely, because she's just so sweet and so fun to watch in that season. Like, her outfits are super cute. You have, really feel like this earthy, youthful vibe with her. Like, her hair and, little, she carries around these lollipops. She wears Angel's oversized jackets. She's just, this little, I'm a Slayer, but I'm also a girl, and, I'm just a girl sort of thing. Like, it's just fun to watch, and it's really nice. And then, she tries to kind of, take this whole duty thing that she has to do with a bit of bubblegum pop in the background. She makes funny puns. She sort of jokes around before she kills vampires. She does full-on dance routines sometimes, or gymnast routines when she's fighting. And it's just really really nice to see, and it really builds that character that she's not just, again, this vessel to fight evil. She is her own person, and just because she was chosen for this doesn't mean that automatically erases anything that is Buffy about her. And then you have the season 1 finale, where she finds out that she's destined to die to stop the Master from rising, and that really takes a bit of a turning point towards something darker, although you could argue that's nothing in comparison to what's about to come. But she actually dies for a couple of minutes and is then resuscitated, and the trauma of that goes into season 2. So season 2 is where Buffy, her looks change pretty drastically in terms of, she loses that bit of, that earthy girl next door vibe, and she adopts more of a valley girl sort of look, and it was a costuming decision. because her hair's bleached, her clothes look more like higher end, like a bit more stylish. Like she still wears like some mini skirts and like cute halter tops, like all of that sort of thing, like nice jackets. And she, in the first half of the season, we still go about, our merry way, but Buffy, like, there are hints of her trying to reconcile with the black and white morality of vampires, as well as, she has feelings for a vampire, then trying to reconcile that she's not going to really have a traditional future, if she has a future at all, because of her Slayer duties. And it's the sort of thing where it's like, how do you reconcile that you might die young because of this burden that's been put on you, but also she tries to learn to see it not so much of a burden that she's been, like, that's been dumped on her, and just something that she is. And then she has the rug pulled out of her in one of the biggest twists in television history, where the love of her life, arguably, turns evil after they have sex for the first time, because he loses his soul, and it questions everything that she's ever known about being the Slayer, because, now the man who she loves is evil. Like, there's nothing about him left in there that's like that man that she fell in love with, but she still can't bring herself to end it. And then things escalate, and she carries the guilt, that knowing that it was her love for him that caused it, knowing that because of her hesitance to kill him, he keeps wreaking havoc and attacking people, and killing people close to her, and like people that her friends and her watcher care about. It's very, like, it really dumbs hard on Buffy in sense of trauma, and just really hardens her character. Those are like the first big things that shape her for like who she is as the show goes on. And the season for her, it ends on a really depressing note, because it really feels like she lost everything. She lost the love of her life. She lost her mom, like her home, she's been kicked out of school. It's just very, like, she ends the season on a kind of a bleak note, running away, because Buffy really struggles to actually rely on people and emotionally let them in. And a lot of the time she hides things from her friends or her mom, because she leans into the whole, I walk alone, I'm the Slayer, no one really understands what I'm going through. And you could argue that, a lot of the stuff that she can't talk to her friends about is stuff that she, she's not alone in experiencing, and it's not just about being the Slayer. But again, because of that burden, duty, identity, fate thing, however you want to call it, that she's been, that's been put on her in terms of being a Slayer, you can argue that it bleeds into other aspects of her life, where she feels like she has to be closed off, or she's gonna hurt others, and then that translates into her not being able to talk to anyone about what's been bothering her, even if it's something very human. And she feels often that her friends hold her to almost an inhuman standard, which they kind of do sometimes. And when she makes mistakes like any other human, they are very harsh on her. Admittedly, some stuff that she does can be a bit iffy, but at the same time, it's not malicious. It's just her being a teenage girl who has been through a lot. And we're only on season 3 now. So season 3 for Buffy, it's definitely a season where she's again discovering who she is. That's their identity. You have this identity theme, and that is mirrored by the introduction of Faith, and I'll talk about Faith in her own little section. But where does Buffy stand with it? It shows her who she's not. It shows her what she has, like the Scoobies and her mom and, her watcher. It shows who she could have potentially become had she not had that guidance and support, because a lot of who Buffy is because of her support system. And Faith is obviously like a mirror of another type of Slayer mentality, and Buffy has opportunities to fall into that, and she's like, no, this is not who I want to be. I am this type of Slayer. I am this type of, hero. And she also deals with Angel and the fallout of his wreaking havoc, but I'll talk about that in the Bangel section. And again, graduating high school, discovering what she can do, although her options are limited, but discovering that there is more to life for her still than being a slayer, and she's still kicking up and fighting against it. Like I said, it goes back and forth. It is one of her big themes for the rest of the show, all of the show really. And then in season 4, you have her being completely out of the water in university, college, whatever you want to call it, where you are in the world. But she's lost and confused, and dealing with being a slayer still, but also dealing with those real life college experiences that young women have, like douchebag one night stands, being behind in classes, being shitty roommates, being just confused about a lot of things, segregating from your friends. It's very realistic, and I think that arguably it's the best part about season 4, because it really delves into those themes without it feeling too oh look, we're being so realistic. And then in season 5, again, another season that really just dumps it all on Buffy, because we have the addition of Dawn, her sister, who is the key, who is the fact that she has those memories of Dawn that are implanted in her that she knows are fake, but she still has them. And it's actually wild to think about, really. You have all this life with someone that never actually happened, but you still have those memories in your head. So weird. But you have Buffy's being forced to grow up because Joyce dies, and she has to look after this sister that, again, she never asked for, and she has to really come into this adult role that she's not ready for, but whoever is. And you can really see her crumble under the pressure and under a villain that she can't really beat. It's the first season where we actually fear for Buffy and the Scoobies, because the villain is way out of their league. Glory's the second best villain of the show. And it is quite terrifying. And how people say, oh, Buffy's depression was only in season 6. No, the roots of it were way into season 5. And no one can blame her for snapping. And the fact that, she sacrifices herself, it can be viewed as this heroic sacrifice, but it can also be viewed as her wanting out, because that depression was already dragging her down. And then, again, season 5 is the cutoff for Buffy's character, because season 6 and 7, she gets entangled with Spike, which really detriments her character. And I will talk about that in the relationship section. But for now, I'm just going to say that I just think that the show became less about Buffy and more, let's see how much trauma additionally we can pile on Buffy to prop up a man, a vampire, to prop up someone who wasn't even a main character until halfway through the show, someone who is a horrible, horrible person. And let's see how we can make the fandom love him while they want our main character to be with him despite what he's done. So yeah, that is, yeah, we're not done talking about Buffy, but it's very intricate, so I'm just gonna move on for now. Then we have Willow Rosenberg, and Willow, interestingly, has never been a character that I was loving. I liked her, but I just feel her trajectory in the show kind of soured me on her character. We start, I'm not going to talk about every character in the type of detail that I talk to when it comes to Buffy, because we'll be here for 6 hours. But with Willow, we start with her as a geek who can barely string up a sentence together, who's crushing on her longtime childhood best friend. And she basically discovers herself as the show goes on. She discovers her identity as a witch. She leans into her tech side. Like, a lot of high school seasons are about Willow finding her voice and her confidence, whether it be through technology, whether it be through witchcraft. She gets into a relationship with Oz. I will talk about that as well. But yeah, a lot of that is for Willow to gain more confidence and be more comfortable in her own skin while still being herself. You know, being her little dorky, little charming, you know, mellowed out person. And then season 4, we obviously see her thriving in university, which makes sense because, you know, she's a nerd. Nothing to be ashamed of. We're all nerds in our own ways. But yeah, you see her absolutely thriving and loving it and delving further into witchcraft. And then she gets into a relationship with Tara, which, like, is arguably, like, those are, like, seasons 4 and 5 are, like, her best years in terms of, like, it's her peak. She developed, she's in a good place. And then we get to season 6 and 7. Again, like, you see a point I'm trying to make. They're not good seasons for the characters. I mean, there's still really well-written seasons in general for TV, but as far as Buffy goes, they're not good seasons. So anyway, in season 6, Willow starts experiencing addiction to magic, and it's meant to be a metaphor for, like, regular addiction to, like, drugs, alcohol, whatever, but it doesn't land very well. Like, because Buffy's usually really good with metaphors, but for some reason this one, it just doesn't stick the landing for me personally. And I know for some other people as well. And I just, like, I guess it kind of makes sense that, you know, she felt overlooked a lot of her life. She felt meek and, you know, unimportant. And it did make sense that she had some darker impulses when we saw her vampire counterpath. Like, it was very... There were seeds planted there, yes. But I just think that the way they went about it, the execution wasn't very... Like, I didn't enjoy it. And then she does some really messed up things, like abusing people's memories to get them to forgive her. She basically, like, has sex with Tara when she's under, like, her spell, which is technically mind rape, therefore rape, because Tara wouldn't have consented in that scenario, but I will talk about that a bit more in their relationship. So yeah, it's very, like, you get what I mean. Like, I don't really have positive things to say about it. But then it gets worse when in season 7, after she commits all the atrocities, even though some of them were warranted, she faces absolutely no consequences for it, and she's kind of just welcomed back, like, same old Willow from season 1, and then it's never really brought up again. And I'm just like, that is such a wasted opportunity for her character. So yeah, I don't know. Willow is... I have feelings about her that are, well, they're complicated. And yeah, whether I like her or not, it depends on the season, basically, which sums up actually a lot of the characters in this show. Xander Harris. Yeah. Well, I should preface it by saying, sorry, I keep having to adjust my camera. Don't mind me. Sorry. But yeah, I should preface it by saying I don't actually hate Xander overall. I hate him in certain seasons and especially certain episodes. But he's far from the worst character in the show. When we start the show, he's a teenage boy, and you have to hand it to the writers. They really showed a very realistic picture of a teenage guy. Like, to the T. Like, Jesus Christ, way too accurate. So yeah, high school years, especially season 1, are definitely, like, Xander's worst seasons. Because we start the show, like, he's a long-term childhood friend of Willow, and he definitely knows that she has a thing for him, but nothing's come out of that, and he spends most of season 1 pining for Buffy. That is like his only storyline, because he's established, he's the human of the group. He's the one that is genuinely technically useless when it comes to like fighting and stuff, because he has no strength, like no supernatural strength. He's not a witch or anything, but it's the case of, in these sort of shows, every group has to have someone who is non-supernatural, and Xander is meant to represent that. And I get why he's in the show, and as much as he pissed me off on a lot of occasions, I don't think that the show and the Scooby dynamic would have been the same without him. So I can appreciate that. But yeah, he spends all season acting like entitled nice guy incel towards Buffy, and like in the finale when he asks her out and she rejects him, he kicks off about it and tried to like guilt trip her and shame her. And he hates Angel because Buffy is smitten with him, and that's like not even because he's a vampire, although that plays a part, but mainly because he has feelings for Buffy and it's reciprocated. Like, Angel has feelings for Buffy, but also Xander, you get what I mean. And then, when Buffy dies for a bit and Xander is the one to resuscitate her, it shows, that's why he's there. Sometimes, like, he can come through and do something good. It just takes him a while, and he doesn't always do things in the best way. But again, it's very realistic teenage boy behavior, although his good moments in season 1 are very limited, because he does a lot of shit as well. Like I said, he can be horrible to Willow while pining for Buffy, especially in the hyena episode where he tries to sexually assault Buffy, and then he hides behind the fact that he can't remember any of it, even though Giles basically said that's not a thing. Like, he calls him out on it, and then Xander's like, yeah, and then Giles lets him off. But point is, it's implied that some of that, what hyena was channeling, Xander was actually feeling, which is quite disturbing. And then you have one thing that I feel like a lot of people overlook, and I read a good meta about it on Tumblr. I can't really link it anymore because I can't find it, but something that was like glossed over, but it actually forms a lot of Xander's behavior towards vampires, like it explains, is Jesse. So the only reason Jesse's character was a thing is because Joss wanted, for the longest time, to have a main character appear in the credits and then kill them off in the same episode. And when Buffy started airing, he couldn't do that because they didn't have the budget, because obviously giving someone credits in the title sequence equals lots of money. So he just settled on killing Jesse anyway, because he didn't see how he would add to the group. And the thing is, Jesse was portrayed as another, like, childhood long-term best friend of Xander and Willow. And then he gets turned into a vampire, and Buffy and Giles explain to Xander in very black and white terms that Jesse, no more, it is just a demon wearing Jesse's face. And he has to kill him. Now, I don't remember who ended up killing him. I'm pretty sure it was Buffy, but like Xander saw it. But yeah, it's the case of it happens, and then it's actually never acknowledged again, which was an interesting choice, because we know that Joss is very good with continuity, so he could do better than that if he wanted to. I think that it actually explains a lot of Xander's behavior towards vampires that is like very black and white, and also his behavior towards Angel. Dante, stop. Because when you move past the incel, nice guy, like, why aren't you with me instead qualities, you can genuinely see that he's probably thinking, well, why does Angel get special treatment just because Buffy has the hots for him? I had to kill my best, oldest friend because they told me that he's no longer there and is just a demon with his face. But Angel gets a free pass. Soul or not, he's still a vampire. So yeah, you can kind of understand it, but it's the thing, because it wasn't really acknowledged by the show. It's for like more hardcore fans that dig deeper into that subtext and remember all those intricate details. And again, if you don't watch season 1, you're gonna miss all of it. So, and then in season 2, he's still quite insufferable, and he gets a high once Angel turns evil to, be proved right, and he is quite horrible about it, and he definitely dishes it out to Buffy. Which, I mean, talk about kicking a girl while she's down, man. Come on. And, you could argue that he didn't care for Miss Calendar. He just wanted to rub it in Buffy's face, see what your boyfriend did, sort of thing. And, we obviously have the whole kick his ass moment, which I know some fans give him credit for that, but at the same time, although I could see why they're giving him credit for that, again, I feel like you would have to dig deep, and it really just, on a surface level, it comes across as, I hate Angel, this is my chance for him to be gone forever. I'm gonna withhold this information even from Buffy so that she goes through with it. And again, I would like to think that it's more complex than that, but ultimately, it is not a good look on him. And, I mean, again, it's not as black and white as we would like to think, but still, like, was it his decision to make to withhold that information? I don't think so. But again, he took it upon himself. And what is interesting is that apart from one call out to this fact 4 seasons later, there are no repercussions for him doing this. Like, not telling Buffy what Willow was about to do. And I found that interesting. I would say that although there are still remnants of his crush on Buffy, he is moving on from that because he's with Cordelia and still, like, Willow's holding a torch for him and all that for a bit. So, but I'll talk about that in the relationships. And then in season 3, again, Xander's development, it takes a little while to get there. So season 3, we still only get bits and pieces. I mean, he fumbles Cordelia. It's implied that he is not gonna, get into university because his grades suck. He's not having the best time, really, in terms of, preparing for the real life. Although there are some things that get glossed over. For example, he gets essentially raped by Faith. Like, more like coerced, maybe I should say, but it's definitely implied that he was not into that, and that was his first time as well. This show definitely has issues with consent, let's be real. It's, like I said, just because I think it's one of my favorite shows ever, and it's extremely well written, it's not perfect. It has problems. And you could argue how much of that bleeds from the fact that, stuff behind the scenes that we know about the creator. But anyway, so Xander goes through that. And we also have the Zeppo, which is one of the best episodes of the show, and it's severely underrated. And it's purely through Xander's POV, which is something that we don't really get, and we get to see the world through his eyes. And it really puts some layers to his character that are much needed, and he comes across as really, like, he understands where he is within the group and how others see him, and he's not really content with it, but he's kind of resigned to it. And the way that he saves the day, but everyone is too busy with whatever else to actually see it and acknowledge it, and he just accepts it, and, like, he doesn't try to take credit for it, and he just lets them go on their merry way. Like, that is, it's kind of almost more self-aware than a lot of other characters. But anyway, it does show that there are some seeds for his growth. You have that whole thing where he actually wants to help Angel, even though he still doesn't like him. So there's some development there. Then in season 4, he gets into a relationship with Anya. That's a big storyline, and he doesn't quite know how to handle it because she's kind of like Cordelia, but also not. She was meant to be Cordelia's replacement anyway. And, he is the only one out of the main gang who doesn't go to college, uni, so he just sort of looks at them behind the sidelines, and then there's that feeling, you know, all my friends are moving on and I'm stuck here sort of thing as well. And when it comes to like the rest of the show, you then have this development of he never fully grows out of his worst qualities. They still rear their ugly heads. But I think it's realistic at the very least, because you do see an active effort on his part when he tries to be better. And my memory is a little fuzzy on like later seasons of his arc, but the fact that he leaves Anya in front of the altar, but it's not because he doesn't love her, it's because he can see, like, it's touched upon that his family are basically abusive, but it's never fully it never fully dives into that. But it's the case of, you know, we know enough to make our own assumptions, and we can see that he's afraid that their life would turn out like that because he's afraid that he's rotten to the core because of his family life. So in a way, him doing that to Anya, he sees that he is protecting her from, like, he's hurting her now so he doesn't hurt her later. And it's still a very shitty thing to do, but it is very human. And he is like definitely a lot more mellowed out. Like, he really cares for Dawn in a non-weird way. He's still antagonistic with the vampires. Like, he never fully comes around to the idea of vampires, but he tries to see it more, you know, with more nuance. And then, you know, when Anya becomes a demon again and kills a bunch of people, he realizes the hypocrisy of wanting to protect her, but condemning when Buffy tried to protect Angel as well, or even Spike, roll my eyes. So, you know, there's really growth. And when he has that conversation with Dawn, when he tells her that she's extraordinary, it's very sweet. And again, like, it shows that with being on the sidelines for a lot of things, he is observant and like he sees everyone else, even if no one really sees him. But I think that, like I said, I think for all of his many flaws, he is a vital addition to the group, and they would not be the same without him. So while he does some things that really make me want to shake him, I don't hate his character. I have complicated feelings. I don't love him a lot of the time, but he does have some really good moments. I can't really speak for the actor, like, I've seen the charges and allegations, but, you know, separate art from the artist. Then you have Rupert Giles. Giles is Buffy's watcher, and a lot of his storylines are directly tied to her and the Scoobies. Like, we don't get that much of him just on his own because he is an addition to Buffy's journey. We just know that he had like his Ripper past that kind of like comes about in some episodes. And Giles is interesting to me because I don't love him as much as a lot of the fandom do, and that is for a very specific reason. And it's because he has fatherly love for Buffy, right? And he does feel this fatherly duty to her, but it almost seems like he's, again, resigned to it, that even though he loves her, he didn't necessarily want to get to that place. And a lot of the time, he is very emotionally detached from the rest of the Scoobies. And it makes me sad because, look, I get that you don't want to be a father figure to everyone, but ultimately you are, and you're the adult. And I get that technically you don't have the obligation to look after everyone else, but it really comes across that you only care for Buffy and everyone else is just there because they love Buffy too. Because with Willow, when she's like experimenting with darker magic and stuff, he just gives her like this sort of offhanded warning and just fucks off basically. With Xander, it made me sad because Xander clearly has, like, again, a shitty home life and is, like, there were times when he's genuinely looking for Giles's approval and he's being so dismissive of him. And even, like, Cordelia, he's always very dismissive of her, although she can be very vapid and vain and all that, especially on Buffy. Like, Dawn, I don't think he ever develops a bond with her. Oh, other than she's Buffy's sister, she's the key. So, yeah, it's very, I don't know. Like, it always feels like he wants to keep the rest of the gang at a distance. And even Buffy over time, like in season 4, a huge theme is separation. And he really distances himself from Buffy, and it takes Buffy making that active effort for him to be her watcher again and to make her tune into her slayerness, like her full power. Like, it takes Buffy to make that effort. And then in season 6, don't even get me started. Look, I understand that Anthony wanted to leave, like, have a lesser role to spend time with his family, but it really came across as, you just came back from the dead, Buffy, and you were super depressed, and you can't pay your bills, and, you know, you have a sister to take care of, and your friends aren't helping you with anything, even though they live in your house and eat your food. You know what? I think it's time for me to dip the fuck out. Like, I get that he thought he was doing the right thing by giving Buffy some tough loving, but look where that got her. I'm convinced that if Giles didn't leave, she likely wouldn't have got so bad with Spike that she, you know, as she did. And I just think that it just triggered all the fatherly abandonment issues in Buffy when she was already at a very shitty place in her life. And I just think that is very, very crap of him to do. And he's more in season 7. An interesting twist, I'm sure a lot of fans already know it, but it was actually meant to be revealed that Giles actually died, and it was the first masquerading as him the whole time, listening into, like, everyone's plans to kill it. And I don't know how I would have felt about that twist, but also it would have explained a lot of Giles's behavior in season 7, because it was just very out of character. And a lot of the time I don't call things out of character, because that's how the writers choose to write their characters. So what is out of character? You know, a very sentient question. But his behavior definitely felt out of character. And it's sad that, again, he was very standoffish and segregated from Buffy and the rest of the Scoobies throughout the whole season. So yeah, I'm not really a fan of that side of him, but I do really appreciate, like, his role as the researcher, like his Britishness, and I mean, the actor's fantastic and very DILF material, so, you know, that's one thing. But yeah, it's just very complex. Well, just like it is with any Buffy character, I guess. But yeah, I do wish we explored, like, some different sides to him. It is sad that after Jenny, he never has another serious relationship, but I guess that goes with the territory. He thinks that he can't risk losing someone like that again, considering he ends up losing Buffy for a while. So yeah, it's very complex. Then we have Cordelia Chase, and I will only talk about her character in terms of Buffy, because most of her development happens on Angel, the series, but there is a lot of development in Buffy as well. It's just more understated. So she starts the show as this full-on mean girl. Buffy makes one mistake and she causes, like, full-on reputation suicide, basically, for her. She is mean to Willow, to Xander, like, she's just horrible. Full-on Regina George style, although Buffy aired first, so you could argue that Regina George and, like, Blair Waldorf and all of that, they were based off her. But then we see layers to her, especially in that season 1 episode where the invisible girl attacks her, and she has that speech about how no one is listening to what she actually says, but it's easier to be alone surrounded by people than be alone by yourself. And it is very sad, but also very relatable in a lot of ways, I reckon. And then in season 2, you see that she spends a lot of time with the Scoobies, and you wonder, like, how is she doing that but also maintaining her popularity? And then you see that it reiterating what she said last season. She doesn't actually have any real friends, and they all just hang around together, like, out of habit, kind of using each other as these accessories in the high school hierarchy. And it really makes you understand her motivations for spending time with the Scoobies, even though she still maintains her witty commentary and, like, her blunt comebacks and everything. And then in season 3, she goes back and forth between spending time with them, because obviously she finds out that Xander cheated on her, which is a massive ego blow to her. And I'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, you just get this whole, like, she's still herself. Like, she still wants to help. But she's also, like, she likes the Wesley guy, which, yucky, because he's, like, 30. And she's meant to be, like, 17, 18. But then, so she kind of hangs around a bit for him, but also because she still cares for the cause. And it was really cool how she slayed her first vampire in the finale of season 3. But yeah, I just think that you do have to dig in a little bit and observe to find Cordelia's development on Buffy. It's not as flat out as Angel. That's why people say, oh, she didn't start developing until she went on that show. But there is room. There is lots of, like, different little intricate details to look for when it comes to Cordelia. I think she's a great character, but I would be scared to piss her off, honestly. Then who is next? Oh, I talked about 5 characters. I'm actually gonna have to split this up filming it, because I thought I could film it in one go, but my voice is going. So I'll finish off the characters and then film relationships and, like, takes and all that another day, because that will in itself will be like another hour. So what's next? Angel. Again, he goes to have his own show. I won't talk about what he does on his own show. This is for his development on Buffy, which a lot of his development is intricate to his relationship with Buffy. But the fact is that Angel is a vampire with a soul. And that is a way to put some reasoning and and a way for Buffy to be with him. But again, I will talk more about that when I talk about their relationship. So he was cursed to have a soul, and a moment of perfect happiness could de-soul him again. But the curse was put on him by a tribe of gypsies whose families he tortured to death and all of that, horrible stuff. Because the thing is, when Angel became a demon, a vampire, whatever, he was not a good person. He was a drunk, a whore, and, like, all of that stuff. So, it only translated into his vampire side. Well, you could argue the whole demon with a face thing. Like, the show can get a bit iffy around that, but you know what? I will talk about that when I talk about just, like, my summaries and stuff. Because honestly, like, if I addressed every single thing I think about the show, we'd be here for 10 hours. Anyway. So, yeah, he has been cursed and has been living, like, in sewers for years. But then Buffy, when he sees her and he knows that he has to help her, that inspires him to clean up literally and figuratively and go to Sunnydale and help her in fight against evil. And it's not just to get close to Buffy. That just so happened that there was that instant attraction there, and that developed into feelings, but it's also a way for Angel to atone for his sins. And the whole twist of him becoming evil after that moment of true happiness, it was masterful. Like I said, like, one of my absolute favorite pieces of writing of television of all time. It says so much, and it's so effective, and you could tell David was having a blast playing an evil guy, and it's just so good. And then, like, it really shows you what he did to have so much to atone for, and it really gives that complexity, because obviously when Angel is reinsouled again in season 3, well, end of season 2, then to season 3, when he comes back, he has even more to deal with, even more guilt, and it's interesting that obviously Buffy loves him, but the rest of the Scoobies, they never truly let him in again after that. And you can't blame them, and that's why he doesn't really push that, and why it's easier for him to leave for LA, because he knows that he doesn't have the right to ask for their forgiveness and like to treat him the same way, because he subjected them to months of psychological torture and he killed one of their group. Although you could argue Miss Calendar, she wasn't actually, you know what, forget about that for a second, we'll come back to that. But anyway, he spends a lot of season 3 kind of like discovering his own purpose, like, because Buffy was someone that gave him that purpose, and then he's developing that purpose to then go and do what he needs to do on his own. And I mean, I would have loved for him to stay for the whole run of the series, and I would be really interested in someone's ideas as to like how they could have kept Angel on while still having him develop on his own merit. But that is for an entirely different subject. But yeah, I do think that as much as I hated the fact that Angel and Buffy couldn't be together, I'll talk about that more in the relationship section, but ultimately he is definitely one of the most crucial characters in the show, despite only being on less than a half of it. And he leaves a mark on all the characters, and he is a very big part of the whole like vampire lore in this show, and like all of that stuff is very, he's just important. And I do think that a lot of fans, especially like Angel versus Spike thing, I just think that a lot of fans don't give him the credit that he deserves. And I do think that even though we don't see as much as we would on his own show, there's still definitely enough development, and there was a big reason why he got his own show to begin with, because of his capabilities and exploration. And yeah, just, you know, a lot of fans were like, he's so broody all the time, but like, this is a man atoning for nearly 200 years, yeah, like 250 years worth of sins, of torturing, of raping, of like murdering people, children, animals. It's like, no wonder that he is broken by that, because he can feel all the remorse and the pain, and then the way that he acts when he's soulless, like it's very interesting to watch. It's captivating, and it definitely makes sense why out of all the other characters he was the one that had his own show. So we'll come back to him and Buffy later, as I said. And if I need to talk about his dynamic with anyone else. And then we have, like I said, I'm not going to talk about every single character. It's just not happening. But there are a few more that I want to discuss. And another one is Faith. And Faith is probably the most overrated character on the show for me. I understand why she's there, and I can appreciate why she's there, but I've never liked her much. And again, most of her redemption happens on Angel, the series. So she shows up as a foil for Buffy to show, like I spoke about when I spoke about Buffy, who she could have become. And Faith deals with being a Slayer. She welcomes it, but then she channels it in a very messed up way, because she revels in the violence. She revels in the pain that she causes, because like Buffy just stakes a vampire after making a pun, done, dusted. Faith beats them up. She gets super violent with them to the point where sometimes she risks her own life to get a good kick in. And obviously it's implied that she has a lot of... Dante, come here! It's implied that she has a lot of baggage, a lot of emotional issues. She has no family, no friends, no one. She lives in a dingy motel in Sunnydale. And another thing, you know, when I said that Giles doesn't connect with the Scoobies, he never tries with Faith, and you could argue she's not his responsibility, but like her watcher was killed, and the favoritism he had, Faith versus Buffy, was very clear. Ultimately, no one should be held responsible for the fact that Faith went evil. It was her choice ultimately, but you could argue that there were definitely influences, and it was also the fact that people didn't necessarily pull her back until it was too late. Because I will discuss that more again when I talk about relationships, but Faith was very lonely throughout her run, and then she became evil, and then she was put in a coma, then she caused more havoc, realized that she needs to atone, she left, and then she came back in season 7, all redeemed, but still shaky. And her redemption is really good, but again, for those who only want to watch Buffy, there's definitely a gap, because she does all this damage, and then she comes back, and suddenly it's like, oh look, new Faith. And it's like, okay. So yeah, it is a bit, like, it kind of makes you feel like you have to watch both shows, but you don't have to. Like, you shouldn't have to, you know what I mean? And, yeah, I just think that as opposed to being a foil for Buffy and to, like, further Buffy's character, a lot of season 3 became about Faith, to the point where a lot of the characters that have been there since the first episode were sidelined in favor of Faith. Like Angel and Willow, even Xander, they all felt shoved aside to make room for Faith. And I think that a lot of that was because the fans loved her, and there was also like all this subtext between her and Buffy. I will speak about that later as well. But yeah, I just think that she is overrated. And yeah, I can understand why she's there and what she's for, but I do think there was a bit too much of her. So, don't know how unpopular that is, but that is. I have Oz. Not that much to say about him, to be fair, because he's played by Seth Green. I love Seth Green, and he delivers some of the best lines in the show. He's a werewolf, but again, it's the case of, I feel like they wanted like another supernatural being in the group, but they never really knew what to do with him, because he was more just, again, there to deliver funny lines and to like be with Willow. There were only a couple of episodes where his werewolf side was like a major plot line, and one of those episodes is the worst ones of the show, like Beauty and the Beast and all that. I will put that in my like all the summaries and take section and whatnot, because I feel like that would be a good thing to discuss quickly. But yeah, I just feel like it has to be part of why Seth Green chose to leave, because he said he wanted to do more movies. And that's the thing, that's why he was written out, because he said that he wanted to do some movies. Can I just be reduced back to a recurring character, appear in a few episodes here and there? And then Joss was like, nope, it's all or nothing. We're gonna sack you then. Like, write you out. And he was like, oh, okay, I see how it is. So yeah, but then again, like, his absence, it was felt not so much in storylines, but in the sense that he added that nice balance in the group. Although I don't know how it would have worked with Willow and Tara, but then again, I just feel like some heart and laughter went out of the group when he left. And he wasn't really replaced like Cordelia was. Because I wouldn't really count Tara as Oz's replacement, because that's a rude thing to say. She's her own person. But speaking of Tara, like I said, Oz's section is short and sweet. Like, I love him, but also I wish there was more done with him. And Tara, kind of the same. Like, she's just such a cinnamon roll, such a sweetheart, but I just feel like outside of being Willow's love interest, which I will talk about, there's not that much going. And then the way that she's killed off, well, let's just say it's not aged well, has it? Considering it's still one of the biggest uses, like biggest examples of the barrier gaze trope. So yeah, but ultimately she was another addition of compassion and grace and like heart in the group, and she was there to ground them a lot of the time, and it was really nice to watch her become more confident, because when she appears on the show in mid-season 4, she's so meek and quiet, and then she kind of like grows more into herself, and to watch her like interact, and in a way I really loved how she was pretty much the only one who could comfort Buffy in the way that seemed to, center her a bit after Joyce dies. I just found that really beautiful. And Also worth noting that Tara was the one that Buffy felt comfortable telling about Spike, but I will get to that, because I do think that is just Tara's such a compassionate, such a, non-judgmental person that people feel like they can tell her things, they can open up to her. So yeah, but we will speak about that shortly. So yeah, I just, it's just such a shame that she had to end up like that, all because of certain people's twisted fantasies. So yeah, we have them. Was there anyone else that I wanted to talk about? Jenny Calendar. I personally think that she wasn't so much of a character in her own right, but rather a character that is meant to be there to to then be killed off to affect others later on, because it's more to prop Buffy's guilt that she didn't kill Angela sooner, to hurt Giles to the point where he no longer wants to be involved with anyone closely. Angel, once he regains his soul, to feel the guilt of what he did. I just feel like that was her purpose rather than her being her own person, although she did have some funny one-liners. Yeah, I'm thinking, like, am I forgetting someone very obvious? Yes. Of course I am. Anya and Dawn. Yeah. Anya, she's fine. I don't have very strong feelings about her either way. I think she's hilarious, but at the same time, she can be a bit too much. And I just don't think that she ever fully integrates into the Scoobies. I guess in a similar way that Cordelia didn't. But yeah, I don't have that much to say about her, honestly. Because a lot of her showtime is actually on the 2 seasons that I don't watch. Although, it's a shame that they killed her off, honestly. It was cheap. Dawn, I don't understand why the fandom hates her so much. People just hate teenage girls. People just hate teenage girls who cry and who are upset, even though they have the perfect reason to feel that way, considering everything that happens to them. This girl literally found out that she's not even a person and that her existence is completely fabricated to stop a god from overtaking the whatever. That storyline's a bit fuzzy to me because I'm still due to rewatch that season. But anyway, she finds that out, which must be a massive identity crisis. And yeah, she freaks out and self-harms and runs away, but that is a very normal reaction. If anything, she didn't freak out enough. And then, she observes, Buffy, because she knows that, yeah, she's the key, but she doesn't actually have supernatural ability. She wants to help. She wants to be strong. She wants to do, she wants to save the world. And she actually deals with everything so gracefully when you think about it. Yeah, she's a bit bratty, but come on, who isn't? And I actually think that people don't give her nearly enough credit. And Michelle Trachtenberg played her really well. But again, most of her show run is on seasons that I don't like to rewatch. So I am a bit fuzzy. But yeah, late Michelle Trachtenberg did it really well. Rip. Too soon, way too soon. So yeah, it's honestly such a shame. But yeah, I don't understand why the fandom is so harsh on her. But yeah, then we have the character, saved, definitely not the best for last. And that is Spike. Oh dear God. Right. So again, it is hard to tell you why I despise him without talking about his relationship with Buffy. But Spike, if you asked me how I feel about his character, it would depend on the season or episode, whatever. Again, similar to Xander, but a lot more extreme. And season 2, love him. Fantastic villain. Season 4, like him enough. Season 5, tolerate him. Season 6 and 7, fucking hate him, despise him. The thing is, we always joke with Fiancé that it becomes a Spiky Boo show. Precious little snowflake Spiky. And I just feel like they needed to replace Angel with a regular vampire cast member. And why bother writing someone new if they can just reintroduce Spike? And obviously they put the chip in him to neutralize him in a different way than they neutralized Angel. Because obviously Angel had a soul, and Spike with his chip, he couldn't bite humans, like hurt them, because he would get the pains in his head. And in a way, someone described it really well. It was like putting a muzzle on a rabid dog sort of situation. It didn't actually erase his impulses. It didn't reprogram him. It didn't give him compassion. It just neutralized him. So yeah, like I said, in season 2, I loved him. Like, he was a villain through and through. And then his unlikely team up with Buffy that was fueled by entirely selfish motivations, but he still helped her to get to where she needed to be, was really well executed. And I'll talk about him and Drusilla later, but it was also like an interesting touch of humanity as well, which was interesting. Like I said, strange but interesting when it comes to the vampire lore in this universe. And then, like I said, season 4 with the neutralizing thing, that he integrated into the Scoobies in like the weirdest way, but it did work. And I was enjoying his and Buffy's dynamic as like these frenemies, but then season 5 happened and he developed those feelings for Buffy. And I won't talk about that right now, but you could really tell season 5 onwards that they were trying to not necessarily retcon things, but to make us feel bad for Spike, or like make us sympathize with him, to make us see him as the new Angel, basically. And it worked for a lot of people. It worked for me for a while. I loved Spike and hated Angel in my first watch, but I'm glad that that changed, because Jesus Christ. I don't know, this is probably gonna get me cancelled, but I just think that the way that the show was willing to throw everyone under the bus to prop him up was sickening, and I will talk about that when I talk about Buffy, but it was not a good direction to take the show. And the focus that is placed on him, it has, like, it's a big reason why I don't rewatch the last 2 seasons, and it's a shame, because I think that it could have been done a lot better. But honestly, I don't like his character overall, apart from in season 2 and bits of season 4. But I just think that the way they went about it, it really showed the mentality of the people writing it, if you know what I mean, and where they stood with a lot of things, because yeah, it was hard to get through at points, because it was the case of, no, you know what? I will talk about that when I talk about Buffy, but yeah, it's very, very frustrating, and the fact that he gets to be the hero in the end, and like he dies, he is then resurrected to appear on Angel. I just can't really reconcile with it, and it definitely sours the show a bit for me, which is a shame, because it shouldn't have been like that. But yeah, so actually, I think I'm gonna wrap this up even here for now, and then I'll do a part 2 another day, because my voice is going. So if you liked this, and if you want to discuss things about Buffy, please do comment. If I shat on your loves, like your favorite characters, or on your opinions, I didn't mean to. It's just my opinion and what I think. I'm always open for discussion. This goes without saying. I say that every time, but like, I am always welcome to hearing other people's opinions. But yeah, overall, I still have a lot to say, but I need to be considerate of not, uploading a 4-hour-long video and expecting for people to sit through it. So yeah, we're gonna separate that, and I hope to see you next time for more talks about Buffy. Bye!